Welcome to Automate Yourself, where automation is your biggest career opportunity in the age of AI. I'm your host, Dina Levitan, and today's guest is Yves Junqueira, a former Google SRE who is a former colleague of mine and the founder of Pipeboard. Yves spent his career proving that even the most complex best practices can eventually be encapsulated by code and automation. He's applying that same thinking to marketing automation now. He's helping solopreneurs manage huge ad budgets with AI. In this conversation, we talk about baking best practices into automation and why publishing your work matters. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Automate Yourself. I'm here with Yves, a former colleague, a Google engineer, entrepreneur, who's now working on a new company, Pipeboard, which is a marketing automation product. Welcome. Yves, I'd love to start with your background. You were at Google, you were at startups, now you're incubating something new. Can you give us a 60-second version of your career path?
Sure. Thank you, Dina. I majored in international relations back in Brazil. Couldn't find a job. Ended up getting a job as a sysadmin working at a company in Brazil. And I got really into automation way back then. And I was fascinated with coding. I really wanted to learn how to code. So I started to work on a little tool to automate my job as a sysadmin. And I published that tool. It was copy paste from a different project, from someone else's project. I just adapted it to my needs and I published it as open source. And a recruiter at Google found me and reached out, and that basically changed my life. I ended up going to work for Google. I was there for almost 10 years. I worked in Google Brazil, Google Switzerland, and in Seattle. We met there. I later left Google to start a company in Seattle. And then I went to work for a bank in Brazil, and I'm doing another company now. So it's been really fun and exciting.
Yeah, you've been at Google, which is a huge company, and much, much smaller companies. I'm curious to hear a little bit about how your experience at Google shaped how you think about automation.
Yeah, I'm really passionate about automation. So at Google, I worked at the site reliability engineering team, like you did, where we met. And for those that don't know, the SRE team is responsible for keeping Google services up and running. So the work involves a little bit of responding to incidents and restoring systems when they fail. But most importantly, it's also about careful engineering to ensure that things don't break at all at any point, which is essentially preventative work, right? You need to make sure that things break. There's a lot of automation involved, a lot of making sure that these systems are redundant, that you're running on different data centers in different parts of the world. And it was really fun. It was really fun. I joined Google somewhat early on at a time when Google was very unique in terms of its scale and size and the challenges that we were facing. And there was no clear playbook for how you build systems like that, for how you ran systems like that. So it was really interesting, it was very innovative, but it was also sort of like a competitive edge for Google at the time. So they barely talked about, the work that was done in our team outside of Google. Later, as other companies started to uh, get to the similar scale and solve some of the similar problems, like Amazon and Facebook, they started to become a little bit more commonplace, that set of skills that we had at Google. And Google, a long time afterwards, actually published a book about it. And it's sort of like the team became famous because of that. But I think the fun was getting to that point where we were figuring out, all the best practices and how do you keep those systems running. And I think that for me personally, the most interesting part is how do you automate best practices, right? It was not an easy problem to solve. And how do you automate when people are afraid of even changing something manually, let alone to change things automatically? So that was, a really fun part of the job there, to really push the boundary of what can be automated, what shouldn't be automated, and things like that.
That's right. And I think there's fear from people in the sense of what if we automate this thing and it breaks production and I get in trouble, and also fear from, well, that's something that's really core to my role. If I automate it, what should I do next, right? And so I think that's something that we're seeing a lot these days, and I'm really interested to hear about how that time at Google has influenced how you think about automation. So my next question is, you have encountered many repetitive processes in your career. How do you think about deciding what you want to automate next?
Working at Google and having that experience of going through a very ambiguous era where we couldn't know if certain things could be automated or not, it really helped me understand that almost everything can be automated at the end of the day. No haunted houses, I think, was one of the things that people would used to say. If there's a thing that we are afraid of touching or a system that we're afraid of changing, maybe that's exactly where we should focus on. There's one problem at Google that we had to solve through automation that helps me inform how to be ambitious about what kind of problems we solve. At Google and similar scale companies, you have thousands of servers and thousands of computers that are trying to do the same thing. And at some point, if all those servers decide to talk to the same system at the same time, that's going to cause a problem. Your server could crash because there are too many things trying to talk to that system. It's what we call the thundery herd problem. So at our team, this is one slice of the kind of problems we had to deal with. For many years, this was seen as not a problem that you can automate. Every time a new product would get launched at Google, we would review the code to make sure that it was following what we ended up learning as being best practices for how do you deal with this kind of coordination problem. We just reviewed code manually to make sure that things were okay, until we started to question that. And we started to say, hey, can we maybe write a piece of code and make sure that everybody uses this piece of code? And therefore, we have guarantees that the best practices are being used by the systems. And therefore, we don't need to manually check the code. And this type of thinking was transformative for the team. I think we ended up learning that all best practices can, maybe in surprising ways, can be encapsulated by automation. When picking what project to automate, part of the thing to look at is what are people doing right now? What is the work that is being wasted, that people are doing some repetitive work that is highly valuable, and look for what is the easiest thing that they can automate out of that process. It could be to automate the data gathering step, right? So you organize the data first, and then you still let the people do the data processing manually. And the last thing you will probably want to automate is the decision making. But there's a natural step for almost every system out there. You organize the data first, you make everything well integrated, you make it easy for people to make a smart decision with the data in front of them.
And something that I want to emphasize about what you said, you really talked about baking in the best practices into the automation. And that's something that I think is great with any kind of automation, but is something that is particularly powerful with LLMs, because we can bake those best practices in a more qualitative manner than what we could do before with just configuration and just code. And so thinking about a small business, what are the best practices in terms of how they write their marketing copy, or how they do something that's more qualitative? That's something that we can now embed in what we do. So that brings us to your current focus. You're working on AI for marketing for small businesses. I'd love to hear about what sparked that transition and what made you realize that small businesses even wanted automated marketing solutions.
Yeah, when I left my previous job, I was trying different ideas with a friend. Let's try to ship some products and see if there's any demand for it. So one of the things we wanted to try was to use ads to validate product ideas. None of us felt like we really understood how to manage ads, how to make a successful campaign. So we were sort of like, hey, how could we learn about this? So for one of these products, we created a really cool website. We talked to a few customers. We thought, okay, I think we're ready to test this out with ads. The UI for managing ads was super clunky, was super difficult to use. And we didn't know what to do. Okay, if my campaign didn't do well, what should I do next? We simply started to get screenshots of her Facebook Ads Manager UI, send it to ChatGPT and say, what can I do here, right? How can I improve this? And ChatGPT started to give us really good ideas for how to improve the campaign, not just how to improve the creative, but also the campaign targeting. I realized that, okay, if I'm going to optimize my ads almost every day, try to make them work, how can I automate this whole process of making a new creative, changing the campaign, duplicating the campaign, and all of that was getting really boring. So it just so happened at that time, Anthropic came out with the MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, and they announced it. And hey, here's a new way for people to integrate tools with LLMs. And Claude at the time was a really good model. So I figured, hey, if I can plug this into Cursor, which is the development environment I was using, and if I can use this inside Claude, I think that'll be really powerful. It's going to make it much easier for me to iterate on these ads and to come up with optimization ideas for my ads. So I wrote some open source code for that, not thinking it was going to lead to anything. I published it as open source, and I added it to some directories that listed what MCPs exist. At the time, there was a single page that listed the 20 or 30 MCPs in the world. And I just published mine, and we started to get users. It was really difficult to use. They had to install it locally on their computer. It was really clunky to use this MCP, but we kept getting new users. People would use our app because it was just much easier for them to authenticate with Facebook. And they started to get this feedback. This was not long ago, not many weeks ago, and usage has been growing, growing, and growing. So I decided to stop all my other projects and focus just on this. And I've been having a blast talking to users every day and improving the product. The focus right now is to make it work, to make it really solid and make it something that people can rely upon. And we don't know if it's going to be an independent business by itself, but it has the potential of being, because we already have more than 10,000 business accounts connected using this MCP, which is crazy. It grew very fast, and it evolved from just an automation idea from myself.
Right. And this is a kind of a new area for you with marketing and helping small businesses with their Facebook ads. So I'm curious how you made the leap from automating just for yourself to turning it into a business.
In this case, it was very accidental. I made it open source. I tried to make it as easy as possible for people to use, because I just felt that this should just be open source. It makes sense for this to be open source, for people to be able to inspect it and to see what's happening with their data, because they would be adding very sensitive data to this tool. So I think that transparency is super important. And I just thought, okay, how do I make this easy to use so that we get more users? I didn't think about how we can make money out of it. I just wanted to get users and see if we can help. And we created a Discord channel, a Discord server. We put it on the GitHub page. We created a little website registered the domain pipeboard.co. And that was how the company got started. And we've been really happy with the amount of feedback we're getting. We get tons of emails every day from people asking for new features, for support, giving very positive feedback, complaining about things that are not working, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And it sort of happened. I think in the past, I've tried to build companies in a very careful, methodical way of like, okay, we have a team, we raised money, let's find a product to build. And this way, I very intentionally try to ignore all of that and just build something that seems useful. Let's follow people's feedback and see what happens. So until very recently, I barely knew what kind of user was using our tool. And we finally started to talk to more customers now. And it's amazing how many, there's very big brands using this product. And we have a very deep roadmap already for ways to continue to automate the ads management work. And, it's been super fun.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I love how you're focusing on adding value and helping people and seeing how you can help them further with your future roadmap. That's great product discovery, best practices, and talking to your users. It's great to see that. I'd love to talk a little bit about how automation has changed not just what you're doing day to day, but how you're thinking about your career and what's possible, where you see this going, and how you think this will affect the future as careers continue to evolve.
And it's a great question. When you have a process, a repeated process that maybe you document and then you automate it, and if you want to make that available to other people, that's a software product. There's not a clear separation about when one thing is an automation, when it's a software product. I think those lines are blurring, and I think that it's a very exciting time right now for people that are obsessed with automation, because there's never been an easier time for you to get something that you have automated and for you to publish it out there to the world. I saw the template you published, I think was this week, right? For the NHN. Super curious about it. And I think it's really exciting that you can get some automation work. You can publish it. And even if you build it specifically for you, other people can find use for it. And like users right now, they're marketers. And I'm talking to them every day now, and I'm hearing amazing things about, they say, hey man, like I'm now able to do technical work, to launch products, and to create an entire business that I run by myself. And I think this is amazing. I think that you can definitely get some simple automation process project and turn it into a business. Not every automation project can become a business, but it's at the very least, it's worth publishing it to get feedback, to meet other people that are working on similar problems. And you could get lucky, like I did, where you publish something and it gets adopted, and there could be a business opportunity at the end. Really, we don't know, because the thing that I also think is super exciting right now is that everybody is looking for those opportunities. Everybody's looking for AI tools to adopt. Everybody's looking for things to automate. So they're going to Google it, or they're going to ask ChatGPT or Perplexity or something like that, and they will find about your tool. Right? So if you publish something out there that is solving a real problem for you, there's a quite a chance for you, for people to discover your project. And it's never been easier for you to monetize even any kind of simple product, right?
Totally. And there's so much going on in the, quote unquote, micro SaaS space, just being able to solve really specific problems for people and help them in specific ways that weren't possible before a lot of these tools came out.
Yeah, I think there's one aspect is that I was also working at a bank recently, and with AI, there was so much work that we could automate, even internally at the company, without having to deal with this whole risk of starting a business or being an entrepreneur. It's so exciting right now for people that really want to innovate, want to grow their career. Starting with automating existing processes at their company is a fantastic first step, right?
Yeah, that's a great call out, especially because to take a leap and go out on your own, become an entrepreneur, maybe not everyone is willing or in a place to do that. And so being able to automate something inside your current environment, that's a really great step towards this direction, toward this new future.
Absolutely.
Yves, is there anything that you're building, learning, excited about right now that people should know about? And where can people follow you in your journey?
Yeah, I'm building Pipeboard. It's pipeboard.co. It's an MCP for optimizing meta ads, for managing meta ads. So for marketers, for ad agencies that manage a lot of meta ads, that need to make sure that they have the best ads possible, and that they want to quickly run experiments with their ads. They want to be able to duplicate a campaign, make a slight change in targeting, slight change in their audience or in their budget. They can quickly do that from a chat interface, from their favorite tool. So ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, you can directly from those interfaces, you just add the Pipeboard MCP and start using it to manage your ads, to get reports, to get insights about what you should change. And you can also make changes directly using the chat interface, which is crazy. our users, the feedback we're getting has been amazing. I was just talking to a user yesterday that said that it's been so difficult for them to hire people for their team. He's a media buyer, and it's really difficult to train people to know everything that he knows. So what he was able to do was he automated his entire business. He manages a huge budget. I can't say how much, but like he manages a huge budget in ads on a monthly basis for lots of customers. So I think it's amazing that, I had a call with him yesterday and he said, man, I'm living the dream. Like I have a solo business with a pretty good revenue that I can do all by myself. This is just amazing. And if I need anything, I can just ask the LLM and it does things for me. So I'm excited to be helping people with this project. We have a lot of big ideas as well for things to improve. And they can find me either on pipeboard.co. We have a Discord server, or on LinkedIn. They can search for my name, Yves Junqueira, and I'm trying to post content as often as I can as well.
Well, thank you so much, Yves, for your time and for coming on Automate Yourself. It was great to hear your perspective from Google, from Pipeboard, and look forward to continuing to follow along in your journey. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you, Dina.
What does a former Google SRE who accidentally built an AI company look like? That's Yves right now. Publishing open source tools that solve his own problems, getting 10,000 business accounts as customers, and helping marketers automate entire businesses that they can now run solo. The lesson is clear. Automate what's repetitive and valuable, publish it to the world, and follow the feedback. Start by automating existing processes at your company, then see where it takes you. Connect with Yves on LinkedIn or check out pipeboard.co to manage your meta ads with AI. I'm Dina Levitan, and thank you for listening to Automate Yourself.